Healing from a narcissistic parent is not something that happens in a sudden revelation. It unfolds slowly, like a curtain lifting after decades of darkness. When you grow up being told, directly or indirectly, that your needs are inconvenient or unimportant, you learn to disconnect from yourself. You become hyper, aware of others, and almost blind to your own emotional and physical signals. Entering your later years with that conditioning creates patterns that affect nearly everything: how you eat, how you rest, how you speak to yourself, how you set boundaries, and even how your body ages. But the moment you begin to recognize that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's, healing gently begins to take shape. For daughters of narcissists, honoring your needs is often unfamiliar. It may feel selfish at first because your childhood taught you that being loved meant being useful, agreeable, or invisible. But as you grow older, your body calls louder for what it never received: care, respect, nourishment, gentleness, and emotional safety. And each time you choose to pause and ask yourself, what do I need right now? You build a new internal structure, one made of self-respect instead of self-sacrifice. Rebuilding self-worth in later life is powerful because it is not influenced by the desire to impress anyone. It comes from a deeper place, a place that finally sees through the manipulation and emotional neglect of the past. When you stop living in reaction to old wounds, your energy changes. You start to move through life with more clarity, more calm, and more courage. The stress that once drained your body begins to lift. Your nervous system loosens its grip. Your health responds, because the body cannot separate emotional healing from physical wellness. As you begin treating yourself with the kindness you were once denied, small changes start to feel significant. Choosing nourishing foods becomes an act of self-love instead of a chore. Resting when you're tired becomes natural instead of guilt-inducing. Speaking to yourself with compassion rewires beliefs that once kept you small and silent. Each choice creates momentum, and that momentum begins to restore vitality you may not have felt in years. This shift is especially transformative in older adulthood because it means reclaiming decades of energy that were spent surviving, managing other people's emotions, or suppressing your own. The moment you stop abandoning yourself, your body stops feeling abandoned too. You begin to breathe differently. You show up differently. You make choices based on what supports your health, rather than what avoids conflict or keeps the peace. Your life starts to feel like it belongs to you, not to the wounds you carried. With every act of self-honoring, choosing wholesome foods, protecting your peace, moving your body with care, speaking truthfully, resting deeply, you step further away from the old identity shaped by a narcissistic parent. You build a new identity rooted in worthiness, strength, and self-respect. And with each step, your health, energy, and spirit rise into the version of you that always existed beneath the hurt. Nourishing the body with simple, wholesome foods becomes a form of emotional repair when you've spent a lifetime neglecting your own needs to protect the peace around you. Growing up with a narcissistic parent often means you learn to override your hunger, your exhaustion, and your intuition. You learn to stay alert instead of relaxed, to anticipate someone else's needs instead of honoring your own. And as the years pass, those patterns take a toll on your health. But the beauty of the body is that it responds almost instantly to nourishment, no matter your age. A single day of feeding yourself intentionally begins to shift your energy, your mood, and your clarity. When you choose foods that support your digestion, your brain, and your joints, you are doing far more than eating. You are teaching your body that it deserves to feel good. You are undoing decades of self-neglect with every bite. Fresh fruits, leafy greens, whole grains, and proteins that don't exhaust your system give your body fuel it can actually use. They reduce inflammation, stabilize your hormones, and calm the emotional stress that your nervous system carried for far too long. This nourishment becomes a message of safety, a message that your well-being finally matters. Healthy eating for older adults doesn't need to be complicated or restrictive. In fact, it works best when it's simple. A bowl of warm oats with berries, a colorful plate with greens and healthy fats, a light dinner that supports sleep instead of disrupting it. These choices look small, but they create powerful shifts in your biology. Your digestion becomes easier, your joints feel lighter, your mind becomes clearer, and the fog that once felt like part of aging begins to lift, revealing a new sense of vitality you might have thought was gone forever. Food also becomes a form of emotional grounding. When you nourish yourself, you start tuning in instead of tuning out. You begin noticing what your body responds well to, what drains you, and what energizes you. This awareness is healing, especially for someone who grew up being conditioned to disconnect from their own needs. Each moment of mindful eating reconnects you to yourself. It becomes a practice of returning home to your own body, your own signals, your own wisdom. As your body receives better fuel, your mind begins to shift as well. You start waking up with more ease. You feel more present throughout the day. You handle stress with greater resilience because your body finally has what it needs to support you. Nourishing yourself becomes a kind of emotional justice, an act of reclaiming the care you deserved long ago. And with every meal that supports your health, you reinforce a new truth that your body, your needs, and your well-being are worth honoring. Gentle movement becomes a quiet revolution when you've lived most of your life carrying emotional tension in your body. Daughters of narcissists often learn early to hold themselves tightly, to stay braced for criticism, to shrink physically and emotionally as a means of protection. Over time, this habitual tension settles into the muscles, the joints, the posture, and even the breath. But when you choose to move your body with intention, especially in later life, you begin releasing not only physical stiffness, but emotional weight that was never yours to carry. Movement at this stage of life doesn't need to be forceful. It doesn't need to push, strain, or overwhelm you. In fact, the most powerful transformation happens with the simplest actions. A 10-minute walk wakes up circulation, clears the mind, and brings oxygen to every cell. Gentle stretching opens spaces that have been tight for decades. Light strength exercises remind your body that it is still capable of becoming stronger, more flexible, and more alive. These small movements send a message to your subconscious mind: I am no longer living in survival. I am allowed to take care of myself now. Every step you take is an act of self-ownership. Every stretch releases a piece of the past. Every breath becomes deeper, fuller, and more natural as your nervous system shifts out of hypervigilance. Your body begins to trust you. Your joints become more fluid. Your balance improves. Your heart feels lighter. And each day, you start to feel more connected to the present moment instead of the old emotional patterns that once kept you locked in tension. Movement also rebuilds confidence. When you feel your body getting stronger, even in small ways, you begin to believe in your own resilience again. You begin to see that aging is not a decline but a transformation. You realize that your body still listens, still adapts, still grows, still heals. And this realization becomes a source of empowerment, especially for someone who once felt controlled or diminished by another person's demands. The most beautiful part is that movement becomes a way of reconnecting to joy. When your body loosens, your mind loosens. When your muscles release old tension, your heart releases old pain. You begin to feel more open, more grounded, more capable of choosing what supports you instead of what drains you. Movement becomes your reminder that life is still happening through you, that your story is still unfolding, and that your body still holds immense potential no matter your age. Creating peaceful routines after a lifetime of emotional turbulence is one of the most healing choices an older adult can make. When you grow up in a narcissistic environment, chaos feels familiar even when it hurts. Your nervous system becomes trained to anticipate conflict, to scan for danger, to stay alert even when nothing is happening. This kind of emotional conditioning follows you into adulthood and can shape your sleep patterns, your relationships, your inner dialogue, and even your health. But when you intentionally cultivate peace, you begin rewriting your internal rhythm in a way that restores your body and your mind. One of the first signs of healing is the desire for routine, a desire for predictability, calm, and simplicity. Establishing small daily rituals sends a powerful signal to your nervous system. You are safe now. Waking up slowly, drinking water before reaching for your phone, giving yourself a quiet moment to breathe, choosing meals that comfort rather than stress your body, all of these become new forms of self-respect. Your day becomes less about reacting and more about intentionally creating what supports you. Removing toxic or draining relationships is also a major part of this transformation. When you grew up with emotional manipulation, guilt, or criticism, you may have learned to tolerate behavior that hurts you. But as you age, you begin understanding how valuable your time, energy, and peace truly are. Letting go of relationships that keep you anxious is not an act of rebellion, it's an act of protection. You are giving your nervous system permission to rest, perhaps for the first time in your life. Peaceful routines also support your physical health in profound ways. Going to bed earlier allows your body to repair itself. Waking up at a consistent time regulates your hormones. Eating at regular intervals steadies your blood sugar. Creating a calming evening routine helps undo years of nighttime anxiety. These simple habits accumulate, slowly building a sense of emotional stability that your younger self never had the space to develop. Your environment plays a role too. Keeping your space tidy, organized, and soothing is not about perfection. It's about creating a home that reflects who you are now, not who you had to be. When your environment is peaceful, your mind slows down, your thoughts soften, your breath deepens. You begin to feel present instead of reactive. In this stage of life, peace is not optional. It is medicine. It repairs your heart. It quiets your mind. It strengthens your body. It allows you to finally exhale the years you spent holding everything in. And most importantly, it helps you build a life that feels like your own. A life grounded in calm, intention, and emotional freedom. A positive, self-loving mindset becomes one of the most powerful tools for aging well, especially for someone who spent years being told they were not enough. Daughters of narcissists often carry internal beliefs shaped by criticism, comparison, and emotional dismissal. These beliefs affect everything: how you treat your body, how you respond to challenges, how you interpret aging, and how you view your potential. But your mindset is not fixed. It can evolve. And when it does, your entire life begins to shift. Rewriting your mindset begins with recognizing the internal voice that never belonged to you. The voice that says you're too old, too late, too behind, or too limited. These messages do not reflect your truth. They reflect the environment you grew up in. And when you challenge them with compassion, you begin to rebuild your sense of self from a foundation of worthiness rather than fear. Positivity is not about pretending life is perfect. It's about choosing thoughts that move you forward rather than trap you in old emotional patterns. When you tell yourself you deserve to feel good, you start making choices that support your health. When you remind yourself that aging is not a decline, but a new chapter, you approach each day with curiosity instead of dread. When you speak kindly to yourself, your nervous system relaxes, your body heals faster, and your energy becomes brighter. Aging with a positive mindset also means honoring your victories, especially the quiet ones. Getting out for a walk when you didn't feel like it. Choosing nourishing food when stress once dictated your choices. Setting a boundary. Taking a moment to breathe. These small acts reinforce your inner strength. They teach your mind that you can trust yourself now, that you are capable of building a life that feels peaceful and fulfilling. Your thoughts also have a direct impact on your physical health. Stressful thinking releases hormones that age the body faster. Self-critical thinking keeps the nervous system in a protective state. But positive, self-supportive thoughts create relaxation, better digestion, improved sleep, and deeper resilience. This is not theory, it is physiology. Your body listens to your mind. As you age, your mindset shapes the kind of life you experience. You can choose to believe that growth is still possible, that joy is still available, that strength can still increase, that your later years can be the most liberating chapter of your life. And the truth is, this stage of life often brings a new kind of freedom, the freedom to choose yourself. A positive mindset does not erase the past, but it frees you from it. It gives you the power to redefine who you are, how you live, and how you treat yourself. It allows you to age with dignity, passion, health, and emotional freedom. And most importantly, it helps you finally see the truth: you are worthy of a vibrant, healthy, joyful life. No matter where you started or how late you begin,